November 26th of 2024.
That was my recollection, it was approximately 90 pages, 3 different depositions were attached.
Yes, sir.
7-page motion, 83 pages of other.
Correct, Your Honor. I just want to make sure that's also on the record since we're just, I guess, putting stuff on the record here.
That's fine, you guys can do that. I'm going to go back to my chambers for some other matter. Go ahead.
Going to call Brian Estes, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that you will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I promise. One thing I do want to put on the record for Mr. Estes, have a seat. He was a person that was participating in jury selection. It's the same Ryan Estes, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Put that
Yes,
on
sir.
the record. All right, go ahead.
Subsequent to your ruling precluding him from being a witness, we did do that. Yes, sir. Would you state your name, please?
Ryan Estes.
Okay, and how are you employed, sir?
I'm self-employed.
Okay, and what do you do for a living?
I am a general and adult and geriatric psychiatrist.
Okay, and how long have you been in that particular profession?
This will be my 23rd year.
Okay. Can you tell us, please, your education, training, and experience in the field of forensic psychiatry and other fields of psychiatry?
Sure. I initially got my bachelor's degree in psychology at Stanford University. Following that, I got a master's degree in social psychology, also at Stanford University. From there, I did my MD and a combined PhD in experimental health psychology and neuropsychopharmacology at Tufts University. Following that, I did an internship at University of Texas Southwestern Medical School in Dallas in medicine, psychiatry, and neurology. Followed that, I did my residency in adult psychiatry at the same place, University of Texas Southwestern. Following that, I did a master's in public health at Harvard University in Boston. And following that, I did a research fellowship at Harvard and UT Southwestern. Following that, I did a geriatric fellowship at UCLA Semel Institute for Neuroscience. And finally, I did a fellowship in forensic psychiatry at University of Florida, McKnight Brain Institute.
Okay. And are you licensed to practice medicine in the state of Florida?
Yes, I am, as well as the state of California.
Okay. And are you board certified in any certain areas of medicine?
Yes, I have 6 board certifications. The first is in general adult psychiatry, and I also have a subspecialty board certifications in consultation liaison psychiatry, geriatric psychiatry, forensic psychiatry, psychosomatic medicine, and addiction medicine.
Okay. And have you ever testified as an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay. In the state of Florida?
That's correct.
Have any idea how many times?
I don't keep a notebook of how many times. I don't know, 100 times perhaps.
How many?
Tens. perhaps 100 times.
100 times?
It's in the tens.
Okay. You've also testified as an expert in other states.
That's correct,
Okay.
in California and Texas.
Okay, and you would testify in the areas of psychiatry,
The psychiatry, psychopharmacology, and geriatric psychiatry or memory disorders.
okay? And did I ask you to evaluate Ms. Nix in this case?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you tell us specifically what you did in order to evaluate her?
Sure. The process is the same as I do for everybody that I examine, in that if I agree to do an initial review of the case, I ask for all the medical records, any mental health records, and any other records that might be important, let's say jail records or anything like that, if they have a criminal history. And then I interview the individual, which I did with Ms. Nix. Interviewed her for several hours and did some preliminary neuropsychological testing. Following that, kind of review the record again, consult any literature that I might need to consult that might be helpful, and then form an opinion.
Okay. And can you tell us specifically your opinions that you formed in this case?
Sure. So, as I try to be as unbiased as I possibly can, but I must admit, there's an initial sort of visceral reaction to something like this case that happens. But you go and you try to figure out what's going on here. But I initially thought, okay, kind of like I look at it like a puzzle, which often is a puzzle. What's going on here? What has not been said, or what is there anything that hasn't been looked at or not? Sometimes it's very straightforward. Sometimes it's not. So I was surprised when I evaluated Ms. Nix that I didn't realize at that time until afterwards that I kind of perhaps expected somebody different than what I actually evaluated. And when you think of a case like this, you think, oh, what's going on here? Is this person, scattered brain? She on drugs? She careless? And you would expect to see those things in other aspects of her life too. And what I found was, a retired school teacher who had devoted her entire life, 40 some odd years, to caring and educating children. And she's, absolutely no drug history, very kind, very articulate. She was easy to interview in the sense that I didn't have to constantly kind of.
Your Honor, I do want to say, I thought we were proffering expert testimony, not character evidence.
What?
I'm gonna say it's his proffer. I'm gonna actually step out for now. Y'all just keep going. When you get something that you need me, let's just contact me, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All rise. I'll be in chamber. Thank you.
What you were just testifying about before the objection from the prosecutor, did this form part of the basis of your opinion?
Absolutely, it has to. Absolutely. I mean, I'm noting every sort of aspect of her personality and characteristics about her, presently as I'm seeing and historically. So these are important things in order to form an opinion. So
Can you continue?
yeah. So I was while interviewing her thinking something's off here. This is not. This doesn't sort of reconcile with the event that happened and this person historically. They don't add up. They don't match up. And but I didn't know what it was. So once I really started digging into the medical records, was not particularly remarkable. I did note that she had was diagnosed with fibromyalgia about 20 years ago. I've been taking some medicine for that. And then I reviewed her medications and her medication history. And I found something that I thought was noteworthy in that she had been prescribed various medications, but had been taking 3 ones that I thought were noteworthy from a psychopharmacology perspective. And that is, she was taking lorazepam. Now, this is a potentially habit-forming medication that is given for anxiety, but only intended to be given for a maximum of 4 months at a time. It also has safety warnings regarding dosage for the elderly. In addition to that, she was also given a drug called Ambien controlled release. And she was, this is another one that has a safety warning. Actually, it was issued after the drug came out in 2013 that said, recommended or warned against doing any activity that required mental alertness, including driving the day following taking an Ambien CR. Not only was she given that medication, in early 2022, her PA that was seeing her, she was not getting these prescribed by a medical doctor, it was a PA, doubled the dose to a dose that was twice what was recommended for elderly individuals.
You said that's twice
Twice the
the
dose.
dosage
Yes. And
recommended or
right.
for an elderly person?
Right. It's also noteworthy to know to mention that Ambien CR, one of the characteristics of that neuropsychopharmacologically, and I won't bore you with the mundane details, but women metabolize it about twice as slow, let's say, as the rate of men. So it's particularly important to mind dosages for women. Finally, that wasn't the only thing. She was also being prescribed something called cyclobenzaprine. She was being prescribed this for her fibromyalgia, but this is a muscle relaxant, and also has something called anticholinergic properties. These are a side effect of the medication that affects the brain specifically and can cause confusion, sedation, weight gain. And this is another medication that is recommended to actually not be given at all to the elderly because of these anticholinergic properties. And she was being given prescribed that medication as well. So there was,
said, let me interrupt you. You said recommended not to be given at all to elderly persons.
That's correct.
I presume 65 years of age.
That's correct.
Would be that. And you said recommended by what entity?
Sure. Excuse me for not mentioning that. The American Geriatric Society publishes every few years, the last one they published was in 2023, a list of medications that are called the Beers medications, B-E-E-R-S. And these are a list of medications that are recommended. The recommendation comes in strong, moderate, weak, and to avoid, use with caution, or okay to use. And these are all medications that are specifically targeted, or they're talking about in relation to the elderly. It's the American Geriatric Society that publishes it.
Yes, sir.
And for actually all three of them have a void recommendation, and all three of them have a strong of the recommendation strength. They're all 3 strong. So she's on 3 medications. Now, this doesn't mean you absolutely can't give it no matter what. You're not going to jail if you're going to give it. But if you are, as a responsible physician, certainly if you want to avoid some sort of malpractice, you better have a good reason why you're giving that medication to an elderly individual. It should be documented. It should be put down and explained to people that, like me, that might be reviewing, like, why are you doing this? This is potentially dangerous. And so there was nothing like that, anywhere in the chart. It was just kind of casually given. Furthermore, cyclobenzaprine is not even a medication that is approved or even used off-label for fibromyalgia. It just doesn't work. It's not a helpful medication for that condition. But nonetheless, she was prescribed that. She's very conscientious. She does what her healthcare provider tells her. Told her what to do when to take it, and that's what she did.
Is that
And,
appropriate to follow the recommendation of your healthcare provider?
Absolutely.
You're allowed to do that and not question it?
I think it's probably better that you do that and not question it.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
mean, you should always, share your information with other providers. If there's something going on, you need to share that too with your healthcare provider. If you're throwing up or you're having problems related to that, you need to let them know. Which she did, mind you. I don't know if well, we might be backtracking a little bit, but she did. She was up front and forward with her physician. But nonetheless, she was prescribed these medications and was taking them.
Okay. What else did you do in this case, and what other findings have you made?
So, predominantly, the psychopharmacology is predominantly the findings that I made and how I feel that affected her behavior and her alertness and her cognition, and that was kind of consistent throughout. That kind of fit her whole picture rather well, and kind of gave an explanation that otherwise was missing, in my opinion.
Do you have an opinion as to a reasonable medical certainty how this medication affected her?
I do. Yes, I do. I believe that it affected her alertness, her mental acuity, and her concentration to a significant degree and for a prolonged period of time.
This is based on medical
This is,
reports you've got from her.
my interview with her, my review of the records, all of the records,
When
and
you
my
say records.
experience. Yes,
When you say records, be specific.
medical, which also, psychiatric, which includes psychosocial, and pharmacological. So, review of the records, interview, neuropsych testing that I did, and my experience over 20 years of doing this.
Any other opinions or findings that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I do. So, one thing that that kind of bolstered my opinion was that there were things that were going on that kind of let me know that there was something untoward or something that was off about her. She retired from teaching, I think it was around 2021. Now, prior to that, she had been hired by the school, outside of the regular public school system, to work at a new school that was opening, and was there, I believe, for a year. And I came across a letter that was written by, I believe, the owner and principal of the school, explaining why they weren't firing her, but that they weren't going to have her come back the following fall, right? And it's a very well-written letter, and it just delineates all of these things that were going on with her, giving the wrong assignment to kids, calculating incorrectly, stapling bundles of things that they take home incorrectly, like lots of little kind of concentration or basic errors that were going on, and this is in contrast to the person that I had seen and that I had tested that was just so sharp, so on point, had her details there, and what was the difference really between pre and post? What was the difference between the person I was seeing and the person that was being described in detail in that letter? And the only thing that was different is that she was no longer taking the medications and hadn't been for probably maybe 11 months by that time, had not been taking these medications, had them completely cleared out of her system, versus when she was taking these medications. And you would expect that, those are symptoms that if you have a neurodegenerative disorder like dementia, Alzheimer's disease, that sort of thing, that's something that at best will progress at a very slow rate. But it's a progressive neurodegenerative disease. You expect it would be at least those same symptoms or worse, right, at the time I saw her than they were when it was being described here in this letter in very minute, specific detail. She was better. She didn't have any of those things. What can account for that? Well, we know very well. I mean, this isn't speculative. We know that these medications can cause difficulties with cognition, concentration, mental acuity, alertness, awakeness, all of these things, and that's in everybody, but exacerbated in the elderly. And again, this is not, I'm not coming up with this. This is something that is very well accepted and not a controversial sort of finding. The Beers criteria, the American Geriatric Society, with all the best geriatricians in the world and psychopharmacologists come together every few years and update and recheck and look at this list. And they're the ones that build the consensus for that. And if it's controversial or, it doesn't make the list. And so, I think that it's important to emphasize that.
Did you talk to anyone else besides Ms. Nix about these matters?
I did. So I spoke to that principal that wrote that letter. I was just surprised to see a letter in such detail and specific, but I still wanted to get, her own. I wanted to hear it from her about these things that she had in the letter. And I spoke to her. I spoke with Mrs. Nix's husband. I've spoken with her daughter. And I believe that's it.
Okay. And when you indicated you interviewed Tracey Nix, that was obviously months after this event occurred on
Correct.
November 1st of 22, and you found her to be basically normal?
Yes, and that was the end of September of 23 is when I interviewed her initially.
And you know when she quit taking these medications?
I do. It was when she got off. All of them finally were by April of 2023.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us about this case and your findings in this case, or observations or your opinions?
I don't believe so, not at this time.
Thank you. You're excused.
Okay, thank you.